Hello and welcome, I'm Suitably Odd, and today it's a very exciting day. I'm excited because we're restarting the YouTube channel, and I'm excited to be playing Tyranny. Yes, Tyranny is a game from Paradox and Obsidian, and if you've played Pillars of Eternity or heard of it before, this is very much a similar style of game. It's a classic RPG, incredibly story-driven, very plot-heavy, and this game boasts the fact that each of your decisions you make will impact the world around you, and for once, it's actually true. So, a little warning ahead. Obviously this video will be full of spoilers and all the videos to come as well. I will be going through as much of the lore, character options and dialogue as possible. So if you want your gameplay thick and fast, then this might not be the best video series for you. But if you want to delve deep into the world of Tyranny, then stay tuned. We're going to start off a new game. I'm playing on normal difficulty, mainly because I haven't got through the first tutorial area. Basically, I didn't want to ruin it for myself. I want to see some surprises ahead. And but for those who want to know about the settings, there is a story mode difficulty. So if you're just interested in the story and you don't want to get bogged down or find yourself cut off halfway due to difficulty, that option is there for you. And for the diehards amongst us, we have an expert mode, which disables a few helper features, and the Trial of Iron, which is your classic Iron Man mode. Single save. If you die, that's it, game over. So without further ado, sit back, grab yourself a cuppa, and enjoy.
For over 400 years, the armies of Kyros the Overlord have swept across the known world. All who stood against them fell before their might. Even the Archons, women and men of immense power, were forced to kneel, chained to the Overlord's will. Now Kyros' final conquest has come to our corner of the world, and two of the Overlord's armies compete for the honor of taking our lands. The elite disfavored, and the teeming horde of the Scarlet Chorus. The Voices of Nomads, spy master and Archon of secrets, guides the fierce and undisciplined masses of the Scarlet Chorus. With each battle, the Scarlet Chorus grows stronger, as the defeated are given a simple choice: serve or die. Graven Ash, Archon of War and the Overlord's most loyal general, leads the disfavored. Though small in number, Kyros' ironclad legion has never met true defeat in open battle. Watching over the two generals is Tunon, the Adjudicator, Archon of Justice, eldest of Kyros' minions. Tunon brings Kyros' laws to newly conquered lands, aided by the Fatebinders, judges and executioners of the Overlord's laws. You were among the youngest of the court of Fatebinders when Kyros' armies came to our lands. How could we have known that the fate of thousands would rest in your hands?
No pressure. So, let's get started creating a character. Now I have a character idea in mind. I have had to play around with this, but I do want to make sure that if you are interested in all of the options available to you, if character creation is a big draw for you, then hopefully I can give you a rough idea as to what is available. So obviously, gender first and foremost. I like how there's description around what the different genders should expect within the world, and how that impacts them. A few different body types here, selection between three, and it's nice to see we've got some sort of like variation for both genders between sort of like the shorter and stockier and taller and thinner, for instance. I'm going to be going with something a little like this, but just to give you an idea, in the Northern Empire where you were born, men enjoy equal protections under the laws of the Overlord Kyros. In the southern lands of the Tiers, only men may own or captain ships, but real estate is restricted to women. Men may lease, but durable ownership of the land in the Tiers always passes to their eldest daughters or sister. Most sons enter their father's profession by their mid-teens. Those without a profession or family lands to work can find purpose by pledging service to one of the Overlord's mighty Archons. Criminals, derelicts, and others are often conscripted into the armies of the Archons. If a child cannot forge his own skin, he will certainly find one in battle. One of the things I really love about this game is that as opposed to hiding all of the background information behind loads of glossaries and information you pick up, and it's there in the game but you have to go through menu items to find it, it has this highlighted option here which you can use as a mouse over or right click to read. So we heard a little bit about Kyros in the beginning video. Here's some more information, and I will read out the prominent ones of these as well. As I said, I do want to go deep into the story here. So, Kyros is a name out of legend. For centuries, the Overlord has consolidated power, sending vast armies to swallow entire realms. The most powerful mystic the world has ever seen, Kyros can issue edicts, magical proclamations that level cities, spread pox, sunder the lands, or change the course of seasons. The Archons, the masters of magic throughout the known world, bow to Kyros, and the Overlord readily destroys any Archons willing to kneel. These sorceresses and madmen lead the Overlord's armies in near endless conquest. As the realms of the known world fold to the Overlord, these captured territories are divvied up amongst the Archons to manage. Able to deliver suffering and woe to every corner of Terratus without leaving the capital, few have seen the Overlord in person. Though Kyros' name is the single most recognized name in the world, only Archons can say what the Overlord looks like. So Overlord Kyros is a mysterious figure, and as we've learned already, this is the final part of taking over this particular realm. So the Northern Empires, they've been taken over, they're all under the rule of Overlord Kyros. It's just these final tiers, this final peninsula basically, that is coming under fire from these two armies working for Overlord Kyros, and obviously how that plays out is going to be quite interesting. So let's carry on with the character creation. So I did say I had an idea in mind, but to give you a rough idea as to what kind of options we have, there's a few different facial options here. You can't zoom in unfortunately, so this is as close a look as you can get, but they're fairly standard. There's nothing too special there. And you can see we've got a few different hairstyles, including bold, which now I've seen actually, I might go with that. We've got a few of the classic hairstyles, including some facial features. Obviously got facial features, some facial hair, I should say, which is quite interesting. I'm tempted to go for a goatee, but I think we will stick with clean shaven, top and bottom. It's just the hair again. There we go. Hair colour obviously does not matter, although does it change the eyebrows? It does not. That's a shame. I wanted bright red eyebrows. And some voice options here. One of the things I was quite impressed by is the fact that both male and female voices are available regardless of gender basically, which I think could lead to some interesting character creation. And not all of them are predominantly male or female. I think there's a bit of variation in there, so I'm going to go with male noble.
That wasn't so hard.
But you've also got the sneaky option.
I'm injured, tired. Let's rest.
That sounds a lot more like me actually.
Interesting.
The classic gruff voice. And some female options here as well. I'm not going to go through absolutely everything in the character creation, but just to give you a quick idea.
Flawless! I'll just hold on to this. On the lookout!
Also, non is an option as well, so I was considering adding my own voice to this as well, but you'll be hearing enough of that, I'm sure. So we'll go with male noble.
Soon.
A few tattoo options over here as well, so I did pick one out, but just to flick through a couple of them here, you can see that they're all presets, so there's no selecting body parts, etc. Say some on the face and hands, some of them are on the legs, some of them are all over the place. I'm going to go for this one, which is basically on both forearms, and I am going to select... I think that's what I chose. That looks pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good for what I have in mind anyway. Right, a few different portraits. I haven't double checked this, but I believe you can probably add in your own custom portraits, provided you know where the folder is in game. Much like Pillars of Eternity, I believe, if memory serves. Played a lot of RPGs in the last year or so, so they all start to mould into one after a while. And scroll along here, it gives you rough ideas to the selection of portraits on offer. So if you have an artist friend, or you're lucky enough to be talented yourself, maybe you can draw up your own portrait for this particular game. But this one will suffice for what I have in mind. Now we get onto the decisions. So, today you are a Fatebinder, agent of the Archon of Justice. You are by no means free, but as a warrior scholar deputized with discretionary powers to interpret and execute the laws of the Overlord Kyros, you are freer than most. One does not apply to be a Fatebinder. One is called by Tunon the Archon of Justice, and to decline is death. Millions of men and women live in the dozens of realms ruled by the Overlord. How did you stand out from amongst this teeming mass of desperation and insignificance and gain the Archon's notice? So I like this. We're going to be working for the Archon Tunon, and so he is one level above the Archons in charge of each of the two armies. And we are a Fatebinder, so the way I would equate this is we are basically Judge Dredd, and we need to figure out how we came to be chosen to become this character. So there's a few options here, and what I'm going to do is I'll click on them. If you want to read them in full, just pause the video at the appropriate time. So if you've got a rough idea as to which way you'd like your character to go, then here are the options. So we've got Pit Fighter, Hunter, Guild Apprentice, our Noble, Soldier, Lawbreaker, War Mage, and Diplomat. And today I'm going to be choosing War Mage. Few have the combination of wits and courage to be accomplished casters and warriors, and those cursed with such a combination of talents are invariably pulled from their mundane lives and assigned to the armies of the Archons. Your earliest memories are a painful slog of training, study, lecture, and exhaustion, all the elements of being groomed for battle. You knew better than to ask what became of your family, nor to question the missives allegedly penned by their hand that were part of your earliest lessons in reading. When you reached adulthood, Tunon the Adjudicator came to the barracks and laid claim to your life. Seeing you as too valuable for the crucible of battle, the Archon of Justice deemed your life better spent dedicated to the art of punitive legal remedies. Though you had much to learn in matters of civil discourse, none could deny your bright future as Tunon's next great enforcer. So we've basically been almost bred for this. Bred for a life of war. We are able to handle ourselves in combat, but we've been chosen to be a Fatebinder instead, which means a little more tact, perhaps, a little more political savvy, which we've had to be taught as well. So now we get to choose two sets of expertise, a primary expertise and a secondary expertise. So there is no class system. Basically you get to choose two sets of skills from each of these labelled here. And what I'll do is I'll go through them very quickly, so you can pause and review the details, and then I'll show you what my choices are going to be. So we have the classic sword and shield option there, and we've got a couple of abilities. Shield Slam and Sunder. We've got the Great Sword option, and that is one mighty big sword. And we've got Sunder again and Cleave. We could go down the short bow route. We've got Heart Shot and Hobble. We could go as a mage skilled in shock spells, as one skilled in vigor spells, as a javelin wielder. These are some of the same abilities we've seen before, Heart Shot and Hobble, for instance. As a dual wielder, we've got Flurry of Blows and Slice. We could go in unarmed, which seems a little risky. You get Flurry of Blows and Palm Strike. We could go as a Frost spell mage or an Atrophy spell. So the Vigor spells are kind of like buffs, and the Atrophy spells are pretty much debuffs, from what I understand so far. Our primary expertise is going to be shock spells. We went as a war mage, obviously, so we're skilled in combat, but our primary ability is with magic. So mages skilled in shock magic can frequently interrupt their enemies, preventing them from executing their attacks. And our starting ability is Charged Fist. Channel an explosive surge of electrical energy, releasing it all at once on a nearby enemy, interrupting them and sending them flying back. And then our secondary expertise can be picked from the same set again. Now, we can choose shock spells again, and I must admit, I didn't plan on doing this, but I'm quite tempted, and let's just have a look at the abilities here. We've got Charge Strike, so charge up your magic staff and release a powerful burst of energy that explodes in a small area around the target. Or Energy Shield, so you use this on an allied target and it gives them +4 armor, shock, frost and fire for 60 seconds. Focus your will into a shield of energy around yourself or a party member. Now, initially I was planning on going for Vigor spells and taking Titan's Touch, which would buff an ally, but I'm considering going all shock and specialising as a shock mage. And I'm thinking maybe taking the Energy Shield as a little bit of defense. It's got a 1 minute cooldown, and it's got +4 armor against shock, frost and fire for 60 seconds. But it's got a decent range, you can do it on any allied target. So I might just take that. I think I'll take that actually. So here we go. Now we get to choose a banner, so something to represent us. And in terms of the options here, you've got 2 different colours you can choose from for your character, 2 different colours you could choose from for your banner, and obviously a selection of logos, or emblems I should say. So one of the ones I picked out was, I quite like this shape here. I don't know, it looks kind of like a thunderbolt. It's got all the right jagged lines and arrows and things, and I like the asymmetrical approach. Typically I like everything to be very symmetrical, but playing a character that is kind of on the side of evil is challenging for someone who normally goes for all of the kind of the paragon, the good options basically. And I am going to take this in, I think a black with maybe a blue on top. Yeah, fits the whole shock aspects that we have going nicely. And for my character colours, well, I kind of like the base black colour. Maybe we should take a darker blue there as well. Got kind of a Sub-Zero vibe going on there. So, we need a name, and our character is going to be called Ludus Notsuru. I have no idea what that means. It's Ludus seems like a good name, and Notsuru, I just read off a box of sake that's next to me, so that will do. Probably means something in Japanese, hopefully it's nothing awful. And here we get to our basic attributes. So like most classic RPGs, the way it runs in terms of numbers is based on attributes and skills and modifiers, etc. And here we get to set ours. We have 8 points available to split between these. We can take these down, and 10 is our base value, so we can take these down, which will give us more points in the pool, and by taking them down it gives us a negative modifier against certain elements. These gold marks suggest that because we're training in shock spells, these are the ones most important to us, and the other ones perhaps not less so basically. So to have a quick look through them: Might determines the physical strength of a character. Increased might leads to more powerful attacks and stronger abilities, as well as increasing the endurance defense. It's obviously quite important. And it tells you there our current modifiers: plus 0% attack and ability strength, and plus 0 endurance defense. So Finesse is an attribute that describes a character's physical and mental precision. Finesse is used to determine accuracy of attacks and spells, as well as increasing worn armor's chance to reduce a hit type. So a critical hit becomes a hit, and a hit becomes a graze. So that's kind of interesting. Quickness is one of our important ones, determines how often a character can use abilities and spells in combat, reducing cooldown durations, so that would be quite useful, because as a mage I think that we're going to be quite ability dependent. Also the shock spells can interrupt other people's abilities, so we want to be able to fight this off fairly quickly. Our vitality is our health, as you can imagine, but it also increases the will defense. Our wits is our character's mental acuity, their ability to observe their environment and pick up on clues. Wits is used to increase spell strength as well as increase the magic defense, so very important that one for us. And our resolve is our character's ability to endure physical and mental challenges. It's the primary attribute used to derive the endurance, will and magic defenses. It also increases the duration of afflictions applied by the character. So we've got 8 points. I'm going to stick 2 in quickness and 2 in wits just to begin with. I'm actually tempted to take them both up to 14. Maybe take them both up to 13. And maybe put the vested might, because it gives us the physical strength of our character, but that includes ability strength. So what would happen if we put 2 points in that? Plus 6% ability strength, and it also gives us a bit of endurance defense as well. Maybe I should just take that up by 1, and then do you want to increase our accuracy? Or our resolve? Which will give us, increases our ability for afflictions as well that we can cause, and it gives us plus 2 endurance, will and magic defense. I think we'll stick with that. That seems fairly straightforward for me. So now we get to set some skills. Now the skills are set into varying slots basically. Our weapon skills, our support skills, and our magic skills. Our weapon skills are used, obviously, when fighting. Magic skills, obviously, using magic abilities. And our support skills can be used in both combat and in other aspects. So, like story-based questions or conversations and things like that. So, what we're going to have a look through is, again, we've got 20 points here to spend, so I'm not going to look at everything, but our magic staff, for instance, determines how good we are using the magic staff, chance of critical strikes, etc. The ability to control lightning is important, because when you get to the spells, it looks like you have to reach certain levels to be able to cast certain level spells, and you can craft higher level spells provided you've got the ability to actually use them. So first thing I'm going to do is knock that up by 5. Let's make this an even 30, and let's just round these off as well. So we've got 8 points left. Lore. The lore skill determines a character's ability to decipher information and put together clues from fragments of information. This skill is critical for magic users who wish to learn new runes to power their spells. Lore is also used in dialogue to determine what you know about the history of the world, or to impress others with your intelligence. So yeah, I feel like lore is important there, because our background as a war mage will have done a lot of book learning, obviously, and probably added to that further once Archon Tunon took us under his wing and started teaching us about the political side of things and how to be a good Fatebinder, basically. Our dodge ability is going to be our primary method of dodging out from attacks, etc. So it allows us to defend against blows from ranged attacks, such as bows, javelins, or magic spells. And obviously we probably want to be at range ourselves, so we're going to be more prone to those kind of attacks. Higher skill ranks will reduce damage taken or even cause enemies to miss their attack altogether, which would be ideal because we're going to be fairly paper thin, I'd imagine. So I'm going to throw another 5 into that, I think, leaving us with 3 points left to spend. And it's kind of tempting to maybe pop some into these abilities as well. So, for instance, Subterfuge determines the character's ability to move unseen through the environment, to detect and manipulate hidden traps and devices, and to open locked chests and doors. It is also used in dialogue to determine your ability to deceive or trick the person you're speaking with, which I think as a Fatebinder might be quite useful. Athletics is about traversing difficult terrain, or ability to intimidate or physically overpower someone. And that doesn't sound like my character. And parry is the ability to defend against melee attacks and spells. Higher skill ranks will reduce damage from enemy attacks and may lead them to miss altogether. I think I prefer dodge for that. So this is an interesting one. I think I'm gonna put I think I'll put those 3 points into Subterfuge. And on we go. Now, this is one of the very interesting parts about this game. There are 2 options here. We can start with the Conquest, and or we can do a quick start. And quick start will get into the game far quicker, obviously. But the Conquest allows you to make very individual choices about the sort of the prelude to the game and how your character played a part in the conquest of the tiers, and what that means your starting position is in terms of those people you've met, those people you have a relationship with, and how they view you, and the impact you've had on the world around you. So I'm definitely going to go for the Conquest option, but it's nice they've included a quick start option there as well. So without further ado, let's take a look at the Conquest.
All the world has fallen to Kyros, and now the Overlord's eye is on the tiers, our home. The last corner of the world free of Kyros' reign. 2 armies, the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus, march south from the Northern Empire, the last realm to fall to Kyros a century prior. In the early days of 428, Kyros' armies arrive at the Gates of Judgment, the mountainous border that we Tiersmen so long believed unassailable. Unable to agree on a unified plan of defense, the various leaders of the Tiers sit and wait for each other to deal with the conquerors, until it's too late.
Okay, here is the Conquest map. This is a map of the tiers. During the Conquest, you will decide your character's actions during Kyros' invasion of the tiers, shaping the world through which you will adventure over the course of the game. Each choice you make affects your character and how major factions of the tiers respond to you. Your decisions matter. Choose wisely. So it's 428 TR? I don't know what that means, but it's year 1 of Kyros' Conquest. The Bastard City. The Bastard City stood on the northern border between Kyros' empire and the Tiers, built upon a natural harbour at the crossroads between realms. The city was a nexus of commerce. To the Tiers, it was a centre of all wealth. To a northerner, it was little more than a backwater trading post. Its symbolic status as a gateway to the continent made it a natural first target in Kyros' military conquest. Circumstances were ideal for you to prove your worth as a soldier in Kyros' armies. Taking this city would send a message to the rest of the tiers. Kyros' will is insurmountable. So this is kind of interesting. Let's take a look at the Bastard City. Named for its position between 2 realms, the Northern Empire and the Southern Tiers, the Bastard City and its surrounding lands, known as the Bastard Tier, is a melting pot of cultures and a place of commerce and intrigue. The Tiersmen of the South view the Bastard City as a place of wealth and excess, but to the people of the Northern Empire, the Bastard City is little more than a sprawling slum. Tunon the Adjudicator established his court in the Bastard City. From this foothold in the Tiers, he and his court of Fatebinders impose Kyros' laws upon the conquered land. So then we get a couple of options, basically, a couple of tokens that we can choose, each one of which denotes a particular path or a decision that has to be made. So we've got 2 decisions here. We've got one which is infiltrate the Tiers, History would remember the Gates of Judgment as the first battle of the Conquest, but the real combat unfolded with advance units of both armies preparing for the coming war. The Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus each had a plan to infiltrate the capital city. Which army did you join? Or Gates of Judgment. The armies of Kyros took the battle to the Gates of Judgment, trumpeting the opening call of the conquest of the Tiers. The two armies brought their distinctive sense of order and chaos to the assault. You went to battle alongside the army whose approach best suited your strengths. Now, I've had to play around with this. If you go for one option, then the options that open up after that are different from the other option. So it's basically branching out again and again and again, and it's really interesting to see the kind of results that you can get with that and the impact that that has on the world that you then start to play in. So I've got a rough path in mind. I'm not going to read through all of the options. If you're interested in the game and you're looking to play it yourself, then I urge you to explore those and to really get involved with the character you want to play as and try and make those decisions. There are no right and wrong answers as far as I'm aware. It's very much about how your play style or how your character would go through those. So I'm going to take this decision on board here, the Gates of Judgment, because I think this is Kyros' final conquest, I believe. He's just knocking out the 7 tiers. From what we've just heard as well, the 7 tiers haven't really managed to amass all of their armies together to defend the Bastard City. It's all a bit of a mess, basically. And we've got 2 armies. So we've got a choice. And I like the idea of this is a momentous occasion. It's the final pin in the map. So yeah, we're going to ride up to the front gates, trumpeting the opening call of the conquest. And in terms of which army I favour, let's take a look at the options here. We've got join the battle alongside the Disfavored. So standing shield to shield with Kyros' ironclad elite, you advanced on the mercenary army purchased by the nobles of the Bastard City. The Legion wanted to send a message to the Tiers that superior breeding and disciplined training would win the day. Or we've got the Scarlet Chorus. You rushed with the chaotic mass of the Scarlet Chorus, flanked the Bastard City's army, and drove them to flee. So the Scarlet Chorus is very much a big rabble. The less ordered, the less disciplined. Once they've fought a fight, if there are any survivors, they give them the option to join them or die, basically. So the way they replenish their numbers is through enslavement and taking on prisoners, basically. Whereas the Disfavored, they are smaller in number by far, but they're disciplined, well-trained, well-regimented, and I feel like as a war mage, as somebody from a very early age has been brought up to master both the magic arts as well as the combative arts, and then taken under the wing of Tunon, because obviously there must have been something good there, must have been proficient somehow, that I would probably go with the Disfavored as the more functional army, so I'm going to choose them in this case. The Bastard City learns too late that a military is earned and never bought. The mercenary army quickly found themselves outclassed by the superior tactics and formation of the Disfavored. Those few who lived to the end of the battle were rounded up, the weak executed, and the strong enslaved to haul the army's wagons on the journey south. So this branches out to a new decision here. So we've got feeding the host. Against the most optimistic projections, the Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus made short work of the local defences. They did so well that the armies quickly outpaced their supply caravans. Troops were plentiful, but food was scarce. You only had time to execute one plan to secure provisions. Or to judge the enemy. The soldiers of the Tiers fell by the hundreds, and Kyros' army could not agree on how to handle what few survivors they dragged back to the camp. Befitting your role, the commanders turned to you to decide the fate of those who occupied prison pens. There were only enough prisoners to support the plan of a single army. I'm going to go for this one because as a Fatebinder, this feels like this is very much what I'm here to do. I am there to basically enact Kyros' law, and as a representative of Archon Tunon, I am there to make sure that the two armies work together where necessary, basically. So, and pass judgment where those two can't. So, in terms of choices, we have got The disfavoured needed slaves to haul their gear, dig latrines, and keep their pallets warm at night. You consigned the survivors of battle to their subservient role among Graven Ash's noble troops. Or, you gave prisoners the chance to serve in Kyros' army or die. The Scarlet Chorus was in need of extra troops to fill up the vanguard, and your former enemies would occupy those slots nicely. Difficult decision here. I mean, that's how the Scarlet Chorus gets their troops. They take on prisoners. But then the disfavoured needs slaves to haul their gear. No, I feel like we should conscript them. Fill up the gaps. We don't want to start losing numbers. This is only the beginning. We want to make sure we stay strong. So I'm going to go with the Scarlet Chorus on this one. You armed cooperative ex-soldiers with scrap weapons and tossed them into the vanguard of the next Scarlet Chorus assault. Those who survived were welcome to take up the arms and armour of the fallen and eke out a desperate struggle to survive in Kyros' military. After their first victory, you rewarded the new recruits of the opportunity to execute their wounded or reluctant countrymen. Wow. That's got to be some poster campaign to get people to do that. Yeah, that's pretty rough. It's a stark reminder that we're not exactly the good guys here. Taking the Bastard City. The armies of Kyros are massed around the Bastard City, the first bastion of the Tears to fall. Both armies long to storm the walled outpost, the Scarlet Chorus howling for plunder, and the disfavoured forming an unbreakable shield wall. Your prowess on the field of battle had carried them this far, but there was one more step before total victory. Both of the armies had inspired schemes to take the Bastard City. Which did you support? Oh, we've actually got 3 options here. So, to finally take the city, we have: you joined the disfavoured vanguard in a direct assault upon the city gates. No fortification would stand before the unstoppable legion. We get an ability here as well. So, Warrior's Respite. It's a it halves our damage for 12 seconds. But in that 12 seconds, we get 15% health given back every 3 seconds. So it says you stand your ground in the face of defeat. During this time, you will regenerate health rapidly, but your damage is significantly reduced. Or we could side with Scarlet Chorus. You joined the Scarlet Chorus in setting fire to the city and blocking the gates. The defenders would surrender or burn. We get an ability with that as well. Searing Palm. 8 to 15 fire versus magic. So for 9 seconds, we can set fire to somebody. Nice. That is quite tempting. I quite like the idea of setting fire to the city, actually. You know, first city, the gateway to the Southern Tiers. Take it out in style. You want to put fear into the enemy. Or sabotage the defences. You led a mixed band of disfavoured and Scarlet Chorus scouts over the city walls to sabotage its defences, for which we'll get Concealing Shadows, which once per encounter, so basically per fight, we will get 100% graze deflection for 12 seconds, but minus 100 accuracy, and increased dodge and parry. So basically, we should be untouchable, but we shouldn't be able to touch anybody else either. So create a cloud of obscuring shadows and dust. For a short duration, enemies that use physical attacks against you have a significantly increased chance to miss. During this time, your attacks will also be less effective. And I think I like the idea of, you know, for my previous decision, sounding the trumpets, attacking the city, the final big hurrah, and setting fire to it, blocking the gates, and watching it burn and making sure that they surrender seems like a good idea. And I mean that in a seems like a good idea in the, you know, confines of this game, as opposed to generally. Please don't put me on any lists. It was passing strange to barricade the very gates you sought to cross, but it all made sense when the fires began. The Scarlet Chorus sent a constant rain of flaming arrows over the walls of the Bastard City, a plague that lasted through long days and tireless nights. By the end, the blaze was too much for the city defenders to contain. Citizens crowded at the gates, pleading to be freed from their smouldering city. You and your army were happy to oblige them. When the gates opened, they opened from inside. That was very cool. Sort of the many different ways we could have taken that city and how it unfolds was fantastic. The bastard city settled into a new state of normalcy, with every tower displaying Kyros' banner. Your name was whispered alongside rumours of a decorated career to come. The armies divided into two fronts and migrated south. Tunon sent word that you were to join the next frontier of Kyros' conquest, either as judge and overseer of the settlement of Lefian's Crossing, or as a war advisor with the armies advancing into the realm of Apex. So already I prefer the idea of Lefian's Crossing. I like the idea of being judge and overseer. I think it fits the character a little bit better as opposed to being a war advisor. So Lefian's Crossing. Deposits of iron made the settlement of Lefian's Crossing a strategic war asset. Kyros sent the Forgebound, smith mages of exceptional skill, to establish a flow of weaponry. Tunon the Adjudicator sent one of his Fatebinders to ensure the enforcement of Kyros' law. Apex. The troops of the mountain realm of Apex stood idle in the safety of their valley, biding their time as their neighbours in the Bastard tier fell. In the second year of war, a joint force of the Disfavoured and Scarlet Chorus crossed over the mountains to take control of the tier's central valley. So these actually have locations as well. So that's Lefian's Crossing? No, that's Apex. That's Lefian's Crossing there. It's quite interesting actually. So they're actually physical places on the map. So what if we can go to these places in game and sort of see the impact of what we choose here? I like the idea of the Forge Bound, smith mages of exceptional skill. So be working alongside fellow mages, I'm guessing. Or they'll be working for me. So it's now 429, year 2 of Kyros' conquest. And I'm guessing that's the crossing. Lefian's Crossing. Years ago, Lefian the Bold founded a small merchant town at the intersection of ancient old walls. A pact between the settlers and a mercenary company meant that caravans were able to travel without fear of bandits or bane, and the town thrived in modest insignificance. Lefian's Crossing drew Kyros' attention for the iron deposits in the surrounding hills. With the region under Kyros' control, the northern smith mages could set up workshops to refine ore and arm the disfavoured with the finest weapons in the known world. The Archon of Secrets dismantled the mercenary support with a generous bribe, taking the crossing in a bloodless victory. Tunon dispatched you to travel alongside Kyros' forces and bring order to the region. So that's quite cool. So we've taken it without a fight, and it sounds like iron deposits are really important. Perhaps there aren't so many up north. But yeah, and we need to arm the disfavoured with the finest weapons in the known world. So it's the disfavoured that will benefit from this. So I've got two options here. The iron must flow. Kyros' smith mages worked day and night to create weapons. No one faulted their dedication, yet production was low. The plans that came to light proved divisive to the disfavoured and Scarlet Chorus. On one hand, any additional manpower was needed for fighters, not forges. On the other hand, the celebrated weaponry of Kyros' armies needed to be fiercely guarded. Okay, so that seems like an important thing, because that's the whole reason we've taken Lefian's Crossing, is for the iron and the production of weapons. The Cult of Siren. Siren, Archon of Song, used her arcane charm to lure locals into joining Kyros' army. As a patroness of the Scarlet Chorus, her efforts were critical to the conscription of new recruits. When an enthralled, disfavoured soldier joined her cult, his company feared that the Archon was growing out of control and needed to be stopped. Okay, so this Archon of Song, who we've not heard about before, can enthrall people into doing her bidding. And it sounds like someone from the Disfavoured camp has now joined Scarlet Chorus, which obviously is causing a little bit of tension between the two. But I think this decision's more important, and it's the whole reason why we're kind of governor of Lefian's Crossing. So, what are our options? So, this is disfavoured. Oh, I see. So, the Scarlet Chorus took refugees from the recent influx and forced them to serve in Kyros' military. You repurpose these individuals to haul wagons of iron for the smith mages. This proved an inconvenience to the Scarlet Chorus, who relied on their force of numbers to be effective in the field. Or, You conscripted help from a local tribe of beastmen. Their strength would more than offset their disobedience. The disfavored protested that savages have access to the secrets of iron, but their voices were few compared to the support of the Scarlet Chorus. That's interesting. I think I'll take from the Scarlet Chorus though, because we just gave them a load of recruits. We kind of favoured them in the Bastard City, and they took extra recruits from that, so they should be able to spare a few now, I think. And it also means not giving the secrets to the Beastmen as well. The population of Lefian's Crossing had swelled from the emptying of lands destroyed by Kyros' armies. Although the Scarlet Chorus fought to keep the refugees under their control, their need for production could not wait. Their new recruits were reassigned to haul iron ore from treacherous mineshafts, labour more befitting slaves than Kyros' artisans. Though the disfavoured grew stronger with the advantage of more weapons, the Scarlet Chorus diminished as their ranks found themselves with one less opportunity for growth. I think it might all balance out in the end though. Next option. We've got a Guardian's Due. Kyros' armies used Lefian's Crossing as a reprieve from the war. The city grew more crowded as a mercenary army hired by the Archon of Secrets occupied the barracks, where they drained resources and escalated tensions. The disfavored wanted nothing to do with the sellswords, but the Scarlet Chorus sought to invite them into the fold. Okay. Pick of the Armory. Since you aided the production of weapons, commanders of both armies lobbied for additional arms. They offered all manner of bribes to be next in line for a fitting session with the Masters of the Forge. How did you sate the lust for iron? Well, 3 options. I think this, again, like anything to do with the reason why Lefian's Crossing is here, and the production of iron and the weaponry seems more important, and I'm trying to stay focused on this. So we'll probably go with this one. Our options are: you let the disfavored have the iron, keeping the best tools in the hands of the elite. The Scarlet Chorus saw the slightest and obvious display of preferential treatment. Although I'm pretty sure the weaponry was mainly for the disfavored anyway, so it doesn't seem too preferential. You gave iron arms to the Scarlet Chorus commanders, knowing they pay very well for any killing tool. Weaponry of such a claim was typically reserved for the highest disfavored officers, but you were open to changing tradition under the circumstances. That's clearly accepting bribes for both of these then. Or remain neutral. You allowed no changes to the orderly dispensation of iron and punished those who tried to bribe you twice. I kind of like this one. You know, we are working for the Archon of Justice, and you know, we're there to do Kyros' will and not the will of whoever has the most money. And I think we should be above them and be able, you know, make sure we toe the line here. So I'm going to go for that one. Using language that left nothing open to interpretation, you let both of the commanders know that bribery would not be tolerated in Kyros' military. That didn't stop either of them from seeking you out again, making promises of wealth and advancement if you showed special favour. Deciding that enough was enough, you ordered both of the commanders flogged in view of their armies, letting pain and humiliation teach them where reason had failed. Wow, okay. So, yeah, don't get on my bad side, basically. Who controlled the crossing? Tragedy struck when a mercenary hired by the Voices of Nomads injured a forge-bound artisan, leaving him unable to practice his craft. Tunon ordered the mercenaries to leave the city in the hands of Kyros' more responsible servants. Only a token garrison could be left behind while the armies returned to the front, as the disfavored and Scarlet Chorus showed increasing tension and hostility toward each other. Tunon decreed it best that only one force control the crossing. Who controlled the crossing? I like how this like stained glass image here with that's the disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus, I'm guessing, due to the colours. That's very cool. So our choices: you granted control of Lefian's Crossing to the disfavored, or you granted control of Lefian's Crossing to the Scarlet Chorus. Well, given the weaponry is predominantly for the disfavored, it kind of makes sense to give them control of it. So I will. I can't think of a good reason to give it to the Scarlet Chorus, other than to get them to like me a little bit more, perhaps. But no, we'll stick with disfavored. The disfavoured placed a modest garrison in the settlement of Lefian's Crossing. Though the force was larger than might be needed to police the small settlement, protecting the forge-bound ironsmiths became the true agenda of the defence force, as these magical craftsmen kept the disfavoured invasion force suited in iron. Relieved at the departure of the Scarlet Chorus, the citizens of Lefian's Crossing felt they got the least of two burdens. You received word from Graven Ash thanking you for your decision. The Forgebound and their weaponry could not be entrusted to the Voices of Nomads. I want to read a few more things here, so I want to read about the Forgebound. The Forgebound are magesmiths sworn to Kyros' service through their operations in the tiers. Although their operations in the tiers are overseen by Tunon and his court of Fatebinders. Each Forgebound uses magic as a tool to augment their personal craft, most commonly smelting and metalworking, but carpenters, tailors and tanners are found in the ranks, and each mage strives to create that which is impossible with mundane hands. Most notably, the Forgebound are the sole masters of ironworking in the known world, using spells of fire resistance to wade into the forge fires. The Forgebound can work iron at temperatures no other forge can match, and with a hands-on touch that no mundane smith could hope to achieve. Because of this vital skill, the Forgebound are considered a strategic war asset, their lives regimented and controlled so that the forgers may churn out iron arms and armour without debate, delay, or distraction. That sounds really cool. I like the idea of these mages, like, literally wading through molten iron or like through fires and like moulding iron with their hands. That sounds incredible. And I kind of like the idea of there being forge-bound carpenters and tailors and tanners. So these typical craftspeople that are actually utilising magic in order to be able to do these things. Sounds just fantastic. I'd love to see something like that in game, hopefully. And then we've got the two leaders I wanted to look up as well. So first, Graven Ash for the disfavoured. The last of the great northern generals to stand against the Overlord in ages past, Archon Graven Ash now serves Kyros as supreme commander of the disfavoured legion, and is charged with conquering the tiers. Graven Ash shares a powerful bond with the soldiers under his command, and regards each of them as family. The death of a soldier at enemy hands represents a grievous loss to the old general, who bears the burden of his love with a mournful stoicism. So that's interesting. So they are a really tight-knit unit then. And the Voices of Nomads. Known in his official capacity as the Archon of Secrets, the Voices of Nomads is equal parts genius and madman. Rumours abound that he can steal the minds of others, though few, if any, are alive to confirm as much. The subjects of his interrogation are never heard from again, and the Archon is able to recall the memories of his victims with startling accuracy. He is the inconsistent leader of the Scarlet Chorus, facilitating between commanding from the vanguard and directing his armies in absentia. Despite his strange methods, no one doubts that the Voice of Nomads is an accomplished strategist, even suggesting that his madness stems from thinking hundreds, perhaps thousands of steps ahead of his enemies. So, two very interesting sounding leaders there. Oh, I like how it got the disfavoured stamp on it. It's like a little stamp of approval. So, Lefian's Crossing. With the mercenaries expelled and Lefian's Crossing under new leadership, Kyros' forces congratulated themselves on bringing order to the settlement and guaranteeing a productive flow of resources. Over the course of this diversion, the army front advanced further into the tiers. Your skills were needed in the realm of Azure, Stalwart, or the Vellum Citadel. So a choice of 3. So are these locations on the map as well? They are indeed. This is Azure, which looks like pastures, etc. Or we've got the Vellum Citadel, its treasures and its knowledges and its secrets. Or Stalwart, with its easily defended position and rich military tradition, the realm of Stalwart was the most formidable realm in the tiers. Well, given our position of strength, I kind of like the idea of going for Stalwart and taking out the most formidable, defensible location first. Or the very least, if we're doing these in sync, then this might be where I would be needed the most. So, or the very least, where I'd be able to hold things together. Should anything go wrong, this kind of suggests that this would probably be the place where you would not want that to happen, basically. Yeah, we'll go for that. Year 3 of Kyros' conquest. I wonder what these little blue donuts are. Stalwart. The realm of Stalwart was best known for its proud army, disciplined, courageous, and undefeated on their home soil. Skill and resolve made Stalwart a military power that Kyros' forces approached with due caution. With its southern position, Stalwart had been largely safe from war, watching for 2 years as its neighbours fell to Kyros' forces. On the dawn of the 3rd year of war, Kyros' forces were finally poised to invade the Stalwart Peninsula and subdue the tier's most vaunted army. So these guys sound pretty formidable, and they've got, by the looks of it, a huge defensive structure. Okay, so where do we start? March gone empty. The Stalwart defenders burned their crops as they retreated, leaving the invaders little to forage. Starving, the Scarlet Chorus mob raided from the disfavored's well-maintained supply lines, incurring casualties on both sides. That's just bang out of order. Can't be having that. Let's see what this says. A contentious setback. After defeat at the hands of enemy defenders, the Scarlet Chorus accused the disfavored of recklessness. The disfavored claimed the Scarlet Chorus brought too few soldiers to cover their flanks. Both armies refused to march until you gave a ruling. This one seems more serious, though. Yeah, we've got to cut this out. So, punish the Scarlet Chorus. You order that the thieving Scarlet Chorus soldiers be spiked for their affront. Wow, okay. But I suppose it would stop them from stealing. Or by your command, the disfavored shared their provisions. The thieves each lost a hand for their treachery. Okay, so they get punished either way. But I don't like the idea of the disfavored still having to share the provisions, because it... no. I'm going to side with the disfavored on this one. Scarlet Chorus attacking their own side. We can't be having with that. Even in a time of war, there was no excuse for allied armies to battle each other in violation of Kyros' peace. The disfavored rightly argued that they only had enough supplies to feed their troops. The Scarlet Chorus needed to better look after their own people. Agreeing with their assessment, you had the offenders staked outside of the Scarlet Chorus camp, left to send a message that hunger was no shield from justice. Well, one thing I've got to say about my character is his marketing tactics. Certainly, they don't play around, do they? When he wants to deliver a message, he makes sure it gets delivered. Okay. The Beasts of Stalwart. Scarlet Chorus mages discovered a spell to turn beastmen slaves against their handlers. The army prepared to deploy this tactic elsewhere, but the disfavored protested. The use of unsanctioned magical practices ran contrary to Kyros' law, and beastmen were considered too erratic to be relied upon, even as shock troops. Or better dead than red. Rather than submit to Scarlet Chorus conscription, conquered locals began committing suicide. Desperate to add more bodies to the horde, the Scarlet Chorus demanded a portion of disfavored prisoners. The disfavored denied the right of recruitment, as the realm's population had taken a steep decline. Obviously these are two separate armies, and they have their own recruitment methods, and what the disfavored do with their prisoners isn't really down to the Scarlet Chorus and vice versa. So I can ban the Scarlet Chorus from recruiting in the realm of Stalwart, going so far as notifying the locals to assuage their fears. I know what the word means, I'm just terrible at pronouncing certain words, and this is one of them. I'm sure there'll be plenty of comments telling me how I should do it. You refused the disfavored request and allowed the Scarlet Chorus to continue recruitment. Additionally, you ordered that disfavored camp slaves be given to the Chorus to make up for the losses suffered. No, that doesn't sound... I'm not totally happy. Mind you, there's no point taking over this place if there's no one left to take over, is there? So that does make a bit more sense, making sure that they know they're not going to be taken by the Scarlet Chorus. Is that more important than doing this? Because the disfavored have mentioned that the unsanctioned magical practices ran contrary to Kyros' law. And that's what I'm here to make sure to stand up for, isn't it? So, you agree with the disfavoured argument and ordered the beastmen slain. The Scarlet Chorus mages who discovered the trick were ordered to never use it again on pain of execution. Or you approved of the Scarlet Chorus's new innovation and ruled the technique an acceptable use of wartime magic. I'm kind of with the disfavoured on this one. Obviously, this Kyros chap is all-powerful, and these magical edicts that he has, I'm guessing locking down on what magic can and can't be used would definitely be in his favour. And they've actually said unsanctioned magical practices, when contrary to the law, I'm going to go with the disfavoured on this one. The Scarlet Chorus argued that their tactics were suppressed by a disfavoured's rigid sense of ethics, which didn't apply to their side of the military campaign. You listened to these complaints with interest, wondering if they suggested some greater flaw in the conquest, but stood by your decision. The disfavoured took the more orderly approach. Kyros' peace meant nothing without order. Yep, I agree with that. The Edict of Storms. The disfavoured carved a slow, steady path into the heart of Stalwart and surrounded the enemy's massive fortress. With the main bulk of their forces defeated, the enemy leadership retreated to their mighty fortress, content to wait out the war. The Overlord answered this impudence with an Edict of Storms on the peninsula, a devastating spell that would endure for as long as the cowardly hearts of Stalwart's leaders persisted in beating. Knowing you had the trust of Graven Ash, Tunon deemed you the proper representative to deliver Kyros' edict. Aside from being given a 3-day window to read the edict, you received no other instructions. So let's just remind ourselves about these edicts then. Kyros' most powerful magic is that of the edict. Commandments cast upon whole regions that can control and destroy man and nature alike. Once cast, an edict can rain fire, wither crops, demolish cities, usher in endless night, or do whatever it is that Kyros envisioned. No known force, magical or mundane, can stop an edict, though each edict is often worded to include some condition or contingency that will see its end. Some edicts have been short-lived, delivering days of wanton catastrophe. Just as many have lingered for centuries. Wow, this is seriously powerful magic then. And that we get to read out the Edict of Storms. Oh god. Not even a question here, just 2 options. Here they are. Agreeing with the wishes of the disfavoured, you proclaimed the edict at once, leaving the enemy no time to react. Stalwart had ample opportunity to surrender for several years. The time for mercy was long gone. Or, in an attempt to ingratiate themselves with the people of Stalwart, the Scarlet Chorus insisted that warning be sent to the towns and villages so that the people may prepare for the horror about to descend on them. Oh, this is a tough choice. So the disfavoured have said that, you know, they've had several years to surrender. They knew this was coming. The wave of purple and red has been heading their way for some time now. I mean, it's taken us, what, 2-3 years since the Bastard City? And they've been retreating. They've been hunkering down. They knew this was coming. On the other hand, destroying absolutely everything doesn't give us much to rule over. And perhaps showing them a little bit of kindness, a little bit of warning. I think I'm going to go for this one. This feels like this one, the option to do this straight away kind of suggests that, yeah, they've had opportunity to surrender, but there's more than just an army at stake here. There is towns and villages involved, and I think they deserve the warning. So yeah, I'm going to side with the Scarlet Chorus on this one. Kyros' wrath was intended for the cowardly regions of Stalwart, not those unfortunates swept up in the calamity of their leadership. A warning in advance of the spell would give locals time to prepare for the devastation to come. You were content to let punishment fall on the innocent as lightly as Kyros' will allows. Comforted that you might yet spare lives, you broke the seal of Kyros' Edict of Storms and read the Overlord's incantation. Wow, we messed up their fortress. The clear skies darkened as you read the final words of the edict. A flurry of wind and rain whipped through the rolling plains and craggy canyons, turning rocks, uprooted trees, and hapless soldiers into hazardous shrapnel. Armed with a measure of foresight, you were able to remove yourself from the area before the storms grew more violent. Over time, nearby communities told of cyclones consisting of thousands of soldiers' worth of limbs, spears, armour, and skulls. What's more, the weather showed no sign of dissipating. Several units of disfavoured, who fought the enemy in spite of the advancing storm, were caught up in the Overlord's magic. The few survivors regrouped and nursed their wounds. Their failure to topple the stalwart legion shamed them into believing the dead more fortunate. The name Stalwart fell from use. People took to calling it the Blade Grave, for the remade landscape festooned with the iron and bronze armaments of two once great legions. As Kyros' forces departed, you spared a glance back at the ruins of Stalwart, marvelling at your work. You didn't have long to rest before Tunon called you into service once more. Powerful stuff, and an awesome start to a game. So that's it. That is the Conquest complete. That is just the beginning of the game. That takes us right up to where we start, and we start the gameplay in earnest. Thank you very much for sticking with me. I know it's been a long hour and we haven't actually seen any proper gameplay yet. But as I said before, this is a very story-centric game. Lots of lore, lots of information, and I really do want to delve into it and read through it and really kind of integrate myself into this world to get the most out of this kind of game. It's just the sort of game it is, basically. Certainly the sort of game I enjoy, and hopefully you have as well. We'll be continuing in the next part. We'll be getting stuck in some gameplay, so thank you very much for bearing with me. And as this is a complete relaunch for the channel, I'm very interested in seeing what your views and comments were like. Please, if you want to give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs up. If it's a thumbs down, just give me some comments about how I could do better. Thank you very much once again, and I'll see you in the next one.